Here we go now. Time to do a little bourbon drinking. I've got another event tonight at 8 o'clock that's all about bourbon. So so I'm kind of in the thick of it here tonight. So that's why we're starting a little bit early. I wanted to give myself a little bit of time to get something to eat between the Bourbcast and the meeting I have tonight online where we're drinking bourbon with friends. So hi, welcome. I'm glad you're here. We're gonna get right into it here before too awful long. Where it looks like we're getting close to the end of this thing that we've been living through, which I know that it affects other people more than it does me. It hasn't bothered me a whole lot. What I think bothers me more is that I haven't had any time to myself, really. There's been somebody here 24/7 for the last 6 weeks. And I'm used to a little bit of time through the day to myself, me and the dogs. And that's it. And that's been probably the biggest adjustment for me. But everybody kind of keeps to themselves, so it's not like it's been awful or anything. But so far they haven't made me play any board games, but I know that's coming. I know we got like another, 10, 15 days of this crap before we really start to go, and then they may not reopen everything. And so anyway. Okay, so today I'm going to try a couple different things. One thing in specifics that we're going to do is one I picked up today. I've never tried it. It's kind of new to me, and I think it's kind of a new thing-ish. But we'll get into that in just a minute. I was asked by a friend of mine to try something that I have not wanted to try. It sounds disgusting. It sounds repulsive. So I got some just to make him happy, to say that I tried it. And I got a little one because I'm not interested in it unless I like it. And I'm telling you, I don't think I'm going to like it. This is Screwball peanut butter whiskey. Now, I can understand if you want to put this in something, want to mix it with Kahlua or, Sapporo, which is a Mexican version of Kahlua. I can understand that, but there are people that are drinking this neat. And I just think it sounds disgusting. But before we get underway here, I'm going to give it a try. Just to say that I did for my buddy. Where's my little glass? I brought a little glass just for... Oh, there it is. It's hiding. Okay. All right. This is this is the... Good Lord. They don't really want me to open this. I don't really want to open it, so we're good there. All right. This is the glass I was given on a cruise. This is what I put Kahlua in. I like it. Oh, this smells gross. Oh. All right. All right, we're going to try it. Just a little bit. Oh. It really holds on to the glass. The sugars are there. See, that's the thing I like about regular bourbon and things like that is there's just not any sugar in it. I mean, there's some natural sugar that comes out of the oak, but other than that, it's sugar-free and carb-free. You start doing stuff like this, and you're adding sugar to it. That doesn't excite me. It's kind of like maybe a peanut butter Kahlua. Kind of what it reminds me of. All right. Okay. I mean, if you like flavored stuff, yeah, I could see this being mixed like a White Russian. White Russian is cream and Kahlua. I could see it being mixed like this. I could see this being mixed with heavy whipping cream, or like I said, with Sabrasso, or I think that's what it's called, or Kahlua, or even Stolchnaya has got a vanilla vodka. I can see putting it in with that. Um, Three Olives has got an espresso vodka. That could be interesting. I don't hate it as much as I thought I would. I don't love it. It's really not bad. I'm surprised. It's really not bad. Would I want to sit here and drink this all night? No. I like bourbon. I like whiskey. And this is whiskey, but not my kind of whiskey. So we'll set this aside. So there you have it. I've tried Screwball. I hope you're all happy now. All you have been pressuring me to try Screwball. All right. So what we're going to hit on tonight is a brand new label that I had not seen before. It may be a new allocation to Ohio. I'm not exactly sure. It's a very, very limited release. And we're going to start kind of back at the start of it and show you the very first bottle of Knob Creek that I tried. This is the bourbon, okay? So Knob Creek makes bourbons and ryes and different barrel proofs and different mixes and different things like that. This is a Jim Beam distillery product. Knob Creek is one. This one is 100 proof. A lot of Knob Creeks are 100 proof. They started off at a different proof when they put it in. It's like 62% or something like, or 62 proof. No, 62% alcohol. And then it distills down over time. So bourbon, as you know, needs to be made in the USA. It needs to be 51% corn. Needs to be aged in newly charred oak barrels for at least 2 years. And needs to be at least 80 proof, which is 40% alcohol. That's bourbon. 51% corn. Traditional bourbons have maybe 70% rye. I'm sorry, let me get that right. 51% corn, and then you'll have other things like it could be wheat, rye, barley. Traditional whiskeys will have maybe 70% corn with maybe 15% rye, 15% barley, but a lot of it, I mean, it varies depending on the mash bill. The mash bill is what they use to create the whiskey. It's the mixture of all the stuff. Traditional is, like I said, 70 and 15. A high rye is going to have more rye. It's still going to have your 51% corn, but it's going to have a higher rye, and it's going to tend to kick a little bit more. And some of those higher ryes are going to be your Eagle Rare, Buffalo Trace, some of those. Then there's a high wheat, and instead of the rye, they make it wheat, and it has very little rye in it. And then there's Tennessee whiskey, which is it's basically a bourbon, but it's made in Tennessee, and they filter it with charcoal traditionally. So those are your 4 different main types of bourbon. You start getting into the rye, and they have a rye whiskey from Knob Creek, and the Knob Creek rye is really, really good. I like this rye a lot. Rye needs to be, instead of 51% corn, it needs to be 51% rye. It still has to be aged for at least 2 years in oak barrels, charred oak barrels, to make it American rye. Now, Canadian whiskey and rye are pretty much ubiquitous. They almost mean the exact same thing. There's no regulations like that in Canada, like there are here in the USA on our spirits. So if you think of a Canadian whiskey, often it's going to be a high rye whiskey anyway. They can make a bourbon, but they can't call it a bourbon because it's not made in the USA. So rye is generally going to be a Canadian. This is a USA rye, which means it has to have 51% rye. And then they're going to fill in the rest with corn and barley, maybe some wheat. It's generally going to have a higher kick than bourbon. Bourbons are more, they have more presence. They're more complex, I guess. They can be sweeter than a rye, whereas rye tends to be more spicy, and it normally has more of a kick. Ryes are often used in your mixers, Manhattans, old fashions, things like that. They've started to use bourbon in those now because bourbon is so popular, and they can potentially make more money off of it. But in traditions, your mixed drinks are going to be made with rye. old-fashioned Manhattan, things like that. But Manhattan is a big one. That's a big one. Let's see. So the flavor differences, like I said, rye can be a little bit more spicy, whereas bourbons can be a little bit sweeter and pack more of a punch. So this is the newest one. This is the Knob CreekTwice Barreled Rye. Now, Knob Creek has a 9-year barrel process on their bourbon, the rye, and on this one, the double-barreled rye. The only difference between this one and the other one is this one is taken out of its barrel and then rebarreled in a stage 4 charred oak barrel. The reason for this, and I don't exactly know how long it's aged in that barrel. It could be 6 months, could be a year, could be 2 years. I couldn't find any information about that as to how long it had been barreled in the second barrel. But what that does is, I guess if you were thinking about bourbons, you'd say it was double oaked. I don't know if it's fair to say that, but in a way you can say that because that's exactly what it is. From what I read about it, it's made it a little bit sweeter because of the sugars that are present in the extra barrel. It keeps its kick. It's made it more oaky too. So we're going to find out everything that we need to find out about Knob CreekTwice Barreled Rye. Like I said, it's a brand new product, and we're going to give it a shot here. Let's see. I got to close out this thingy here. Hi, Nate. How are you? Oh, you're laughing at my use of Screwball. Yeah, I'm not. I can't say as though I'm a fan there, Nate. I know you're one of the guys that said, "Hey, have you tried this?" Okay, I've tried it. I don't love it, but it's not as bad as I thought it would be. I could have that after a dinner, or I could mix it with something, or I could drink it. Not on purpose. I wouldn't go to a bar and say, "Give me some of that Screwball." No. All right, so we played a little bit with ice cubes again, and I think you're going to like what we did with ice because we were talking about that a little bit last week. Let's get this opened up. Now, in case I like this, I bought 2 bottles of it. Let's see how that works. All right. This has got this wax that they use to cap it. Seems to be a popular thing in bourbon is wax. Evan Williams does this. Knob Creek does it. Maker's Mark does it. There's a lot of wax on bottles. Let's see. So we'll get our official tasting glass of the Bourbon Trail and pull this cork out. Try not to spill it in the process. There we go. Things don't want to open tonight. All right, here we go. All right, so while we're letting this sit, because I like to let it sit. So while we're going to let it sit for a minute, let's talk about ice, because some cool things happen. Put the cap back on that. No, I'll just leave it off because I'm going to pour another one anyway. All right, so let's see. I keep my here. Okay, so I was telling you that I was having trouble making clear ice. It said to leave it in for 24 to 36 hours, and I would get good clear ice. Well, I left it in a lot longer than that. I left it in about 2.5 days, and something really cool happened. Something not so cool happened. This is my clear ice cube, my clear ice ball, and it came out kind of clear, but it came out kind of cloudy too, and I think it's because I left it in there for so long. I'm not disappointed. It's okay. And it's a full ice ball, and it's not halfly formed or whatever. But something else happened that's kind of cool. I showed you last week the cooler that it goes into that makes the ice freeze slower. You use hot water, so it freezes slower, and it freezes sort of from the inside out, forcing the air out. Well, I mentioned that you can do this in a cooler. And leaving the ice in that cooler piece for so much longer froze all that ice in there, and by golly, look what I got. I got a clear ice cube from the cooler. Now it's really super big, but you can score it with a knife and chop it up. I've seen people like this white stuff here on the side, they just kind of scrape that off, and you come up with a really, really nice clear ice cube on accident. So now, like I said, it's too big for a glass, but you can chop that up and use it, and you'll have nice clear ice. I know a lot of people do it that way. They just go ahead and use a cooler to create their clear ice. Nate's talking about the Screwball some more. We tried the Screwball. He says he likes to mix it, not good neat. I can agree with that. I'm going to let the wife try this and see what she thinks. I just got a little one, but I didn't drink much out of it because I didn't want to. All right, so back to the ice. So there's my ice ball. The other thing I want to show you, put this one in this one, so it stays nice and cold for later. I showed you the rose ice molds that I got, and that turned out pretty cool. It was clear at first, and then I set it in the freezer for a little bit longer. Now, if I pour liquid on this, it'll clear up, I think, a little bit. But here's the funny thing. It doesn't fit in my normal glass at all. So if I want to use this, I have to get a different type of glass that'll fit in the bottom of. So my wife's suggestion was maybe I don't fill up the mold as much. I will tell you the mold is a pain in the butt. The mold is a massive pain in the butt because it's really, really flimsy. I had to set it on a tray and take that and stick it in the freezer. Otherwise, I couldn't move it around or anything like that. The water would get everywhere. So it's already starting to clear up because it's outside. Isn't that neat? Sorry, computer. Pour that back in there. And I'll get my other ice ball. Pour that back in there. There we go. So there you have it. The rose ice mold turned out pretty cool. Pain in the ass to make, but it turned out good. So I'll use them. I got, let's see, I had 6 in the mold, so I got 12 of them. So that'll last me a while. When the wife has like people over, if we ever get out of this quarantine, or she feels like drinking something and she wants it to be pretty, she can do that. I picked up a new gin today, a new Hendrick's gin. It's the summer solstice. I haven't tried that yet. I'm kind of excited about that because I love gin and I really like Hendrick's. And this is a new blend. And evidently they've started to expand their blends. So the Hendrick's gins, keep an eye out for that. Okay. So we've let this sit for a couple of minutes. This is the new Knob Creek twice barreled, or sometimes double barreled is what they call it, rye. This is the twice barreled. I'm just going to use the real term that's actually on the bottle. In the store, it's a double barrel, but it's twice barreled. So the smell of alcohol in the nose is definitely present. They're talking about the spice of the rye. Now, then, this is not a bourbon. This is a rye. So for those of you expecting a bourbon, I know it's not a bourbon. It's a rye, not a bourbon. It's a whiskey. Bourbon is a whiskey. Rye is a whiskey. It fits in the same family. It's okay. Lots of oak, lots of cinnamon, toffee. Boy, this is, yeah, the bouquet is fantastic. It really has a lot of body to it. Really gets up in there. The ethanol is definitely present, but it's 100 proof. I checked this time. No, it's 100 proof in the bottle. That's what they distill it out to. So, yeah, I'm actually getting a chocolate note. That's kind of interesting. And we might get into the ryes here a little bit. Not today. As we go along here, I've got some more ryes I want to try. There's one that has been highly recommended. I'm not going to name it here today, but I'm looking forward to trying it. It's supposed to be really, really good. So we'll get to that when we get to that. But let's give it a shot. Definitely more spicy. Those spices just, and it's got more of a kick in the pants, like you'd expect from a rye. It comes out and it says, hello, poof. Goes down warm. It does have a sweeter palate and finish than you might get from a regular rye, because this is twice barreled. It's going to take some of the sweetness, the sugars, the natural sugars out of the wood after it's charred in the barrel. Going to bring a little of that in. That is there on the finish a lot. I'm getting a lot more of the vanilla and even a fruity type of feel on the finish, which is actually really nice. It's really, really nice. Yeah. Toffee, smoke, oak. It's really, really well balanced. And I understand that's what they were going for when they did the double barrel, when they did the twice barreled rye, is they wanted something, because rye is something that rye people like, and sometimes bourbon people don't like rye. They like that sweeter texture to their ryes, sweeter flavor, sweeter palate, than they like that in the bourbon, and they don't like that it's not there all the time in the ryes. And this is supposed to be a rye that is palatable to bourbon lovers because it adds that oak. It adds that smoothness. It adds that complexity. It adds those sugars. Again, not real sugar per se. There's a trace, but just that trace is enough to give it a sweetness that ryes wouldn't normally have. I would put this up against, again, it's got more of a kick, more of a spice to it than maybe an Eagle Rare, but I'd put it up against the Blanton's as far as, because Blanton's is a bourbon, but it's got a lot of spice to it, and it's got a lot of kick to it. And I would put this up against that as far as flavor profile. It's actually quite good. Yeah. It's got a really nice spiciness to it. The cinnamon's really coming out. The toffee, the smoke, or the oak, and the kick of the rye, and the taste of the rye. This is a good pour. Let's move on, because we got to do this. I'm just going to do it this way because, like I said, I got another Bourbcast. I'm calling it a Zoomiski. It's Zoom with whiskey. So I've got that at 8 o'clock, and I don't want to get too tanked before I do that. If I show up already in worse shape than those guys are going to be, oh, that's the wrong one. Oops. It's camouflage. How do I even see it? So we're going to go, hopefully, shoot bow tomorrow, depending on the weather. And Jeff is telling me not to be late. I just spilled it all over myself. It was not graceful at all. I don't have the paper towels anywhere nearby. Yeah. Because last time I was 3 minutes late. The other guy who didn't do any drinking was a lot later than me. So, but the Zoomiski last week was long. It was like 4 hours long. And when I do a pour, it's like a double. I did 6 pours of Old Forester 1920, which is 115 proof. I was feeling that on Sunday morning. I ain't gonna lie. I got a lot of tolerance built up. It was not 10 minutes late, Jeff. Your clock is wrong. But I was feeling it. I wasn't like hungover. I didn't have a headache. I didn't feel like I was gonna hurl or anything. But I could tell I'd had too much. So I'm gonna be a little more prudent this evening with my next one. Okay, so we're icing the rye down. Again, rye is used often in mixed drinks like Manhattans and Old Fashions because it has such a spice. It has such a kick. And when you mix it, it'll retain some of that, but still take on the flavor of all the different things, the simple syrups and the fruits and the juices and different things that you put into your mixed drinks. And so when we ice it down, it might help with that kick a little bit. but it should still retain a lot of its spice. Let's give it a try, shall we? The kick is largely sedated on ice. This ice has not been melting. We haven't diffused it. We haven't watered it down. But the kick is definitely. I can see why they would use this for a mixer, because if you want to still taste the alcohol, if you still want to feel like you're drinking alcohol, and you put it in a mixer and it flattens out, then at least it's got enough juice to keep you going, to keep the drink going, so it feels like you're drinking something. This does that, even with a big old ice ball in it. It does pull it down a lot, but still very spicy. Still a lot of cinnamon. I would almost say some clove. Maybe some allspice, or what's that? Five spice. It helps pull out some of the spices. You can start to identify things a little bit better when you pull away that oomph that it's got. I'm not getting the chocolate as much. It's still there. I'm not getting the toffee as much. It's still there, but I'm not getting it as much. The cinnamon is definitely still there. The vanilla has started to come out a little bit more. I told you in the finish there's vanilla, but when you ice it down, that vanilla starts to become more present, because now you're diluting that kick, so the different flavor profiles can come through. Now we're back to a type of drink that I could tell you is refreshing on ice. There aren't a lot of bourbons that I think would ever be refreshing, or ryes, or whatever, whiskeys. But this one, when you put it on ice and it gets chilled, you got all these flavors, and you don't need to put anything else in it. You can. We talked about that. 7-Ups or whatever you like to mix with, but this has really got a very nice flavor and could be called refreshing when you cool it down. So I like it. So to recap, we showed you a little bit more about the ice and a happy accident that I had in making clear ice. We talked a little bit about the Knob Creek whiskey, which similarly is at 100 proof and aged for 9 years. The regular Knob Creek rye, which is 100 proof and aged for 9 years. Sticker's coming off. And the one that we tried today is the Knob CreekTwice Barreled Rye, which adds complexity, adds a little sweetness, and adds more oak because it's double barreled. It's twice barreled. The second time it's in a number 4 or stage 4 charred oak barrel, which is going to bring in more sugars, more balance, more flavor, more oak, making this more palatable to somebody who is more of a bourbon drinker than a rye drinker. It's still going to have your rye kick. It doesn't have as much corn, so the sweetness isn't there like you would in a bourbon. The smoothness isn't there. It's going to have kick because it's a rye. It's 51% rye instead of 51% corn. But they've done a pretty good job of bridging the gap and showing us a rye that that is very much as complex and as tasty as a bourbon. This is an easier thing to drink, I think, sometimes than some of the other Knob Creek, like the original Knob Creek bourbon. That's one that I traditionally will at least put an ice cube in. I like to bring that down a notch, and I like to give that the opportunity to open up. It's one of the rare bourbons that I like to have open up. And this rye does the same thing, but if you're a rye lover and you like that kick, then maybe the ice isn't for you. Or maybe a slow melting ice like the ice ball that I use is for you. So I want to thank you again for checking us out and coming to Beautiful Bourbon. Oh, I've got a picture. I was going to do it. I haven't done it yet. I will post the picture as soon as I'm done here. I took it today. I really like it. I hope that you like the photo as well, because, again, the whole reason that we do this is to merge two passions, bourbon and talking about bourbon and photography. and I'm an amateur at both. I'm not learned in bourbon yet. I've got a lot to learn. I'm not perfect in photography. I've got a lot to learn, but I'm putting the two together because I love both of them, and it's just fun. It's fun taking photos of bourbon. So that's why I do it, and that's why this page exists, and that's why I'm doing what I'm doing. And I hope you're enjoying it as much as I am. And I just want to say again, thank you for coming and checking it out, and I will talk to you again next week.